Welcome to Kako Vision, a podcast to pump you up to change the world. Hosted by me, Jordana. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome to Kako Vision with Jordana. I'm Jordana, and I am a mom on a mission. I look around and I really don't like what I see. And there are so many problems, and we are getting nothing accomplished. And I have a vision for something much better. And this podcast is going to share that with you. Before we get started, a couple of notes on this podcast. This show covers mature content and uses language not suitable for little or sensitive ears. Also, I'm not perfect. This podcast isn't perfect. My website's not perfect. The app is not perfect. I don't aim for perfection. I aim for continual improvement. Throughout this podcast, I'm going to be sharing what I learned over the last 5 years. I'm going to release all sorts of material to try to make it as easy as possible to learn about what's going on, why it's going on, where our path is leading us, and ultimately a way forward that's different, that's better, and that gives us a chance. Because we know our current way is not working. And if we continue to try that, the stakes are just too high. So bear with me. This has been a wild ride, and it's had its ups and its downs. And I know that 2022 is going to be an amazing year. So I'm really excited. I hope you're going to join me along the way. Obviously, this podcast is going to talk a lot about Kako and the potential I see if we come together and use technology. And so Kako's a social media tool, and it can connect anybody who's interested in working on building a better future. It's similar to any of the other social media tools that are currently available. It's always going to be like a step or two behind, and that's intentional. We want other people to set everything up, and then we want to be a fast follower. We want to learn from their mistakes, but use technology and incorporate it in a way and a perspective of what's best for the people of the Kako community and what's best for society and for the planet. You've probably noticed Amazon is wildly successful. It's a staple of American commerce. It allows things to be made all over this world inexpensively and show up at your door in 2 days. I recently saw an article on NPR that I will post online and on the Kako network, but talking about how most returns don't even get restocked, that the valuable items are. So, for example, for clothes, if it's worth somebody inspecting and assessing damages and dry cleaning, whatever it may be, then they'll do it. But if not, it's going to go to a landfill. We need to do something similar. But rather than having the end goal be to get cheap stuff to you as fast as possible, it needs to be to maximize the resources. And I'm telling you, it'll be as wildly successful and impactful, but in a good way. And look, I'm an Amazon Prime member. Until we create something better, I will be. But if we take different pieces of technology and use them from the perspective of the people and what's best for the people, the sky's the limit. And because Kako has been so instrumental, I have devoted an episode specifically to that journey and really how the universe has been kind of guiding me along the way. And also another episode that talks about my reason why and the circumstances that really just created this perfect storm for me to see the big picture. And I'm sharing this and inviting you into my family because I want you to trust me. It's more important for me to get this vision out of my head and to get people to understand how urgent it is to create the world that we want to live in. I know that most people will think that I'm crazy, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. I don't know, maybe we need some crazy here. And ultimately, I'm looking for 1% of the population. And I think if we build technology around the 1% that still cares, that hasn't given up, and I think those people need a support system at this point. But I think if we can build technology around that 1%, that the possibilities are limitless. That even my utopian version isn't utopian enough. We can use technology and community and intention to create a world where anybody can contribute and contribute easily and live comfortably. Just be a good person and help the people around you. And don't kill our planet. And that should be enough. That should be enough to at least live comfortably. If you want to be a millionaire, that's fine. Work hard. Do more. But once we get to the point of these tech giants where it's a winner take all and individuals own huge chunks of these corporations, and then they're incentivized to work in the best interest of investors who happen to be themselves, it's at odds with what's best for society. And we are on the cusp of a technological revolution unlike any that we've seen before. If we don't change our direction now, things are going to get really bad really quickly. And until we get ourselves out of this, you won't realize how bad things really are. In 2019, I was warning of plague, war, revolution, and state collapse. Those were 4 things I specifically mentioned because historically, when we are this imbalanced, those are the corrective actions. And I don't like any of those. That was before the hell of a year that was 2020. Within the span of 1 year, we were almost at war with Iran. We were presented with a global pandemic, and our citizens couldn't trust our government. And there was an uprising on our own soil, in our own capital, at the direction of our own president. We are on the wrong track. And I'm telling you that things are just getting worse. Don't get a sense of complacency or feel comfort that there's a Democrat as opposed to a Republican in the Oval Office. It doesn't matter. This is so much bigger than party affiliation. We need to put aside the differences that we have and focus on the shit that we have in common and not cancel each other because one of our differences, we can't let that keep us from coming to the table on anything else. Because there's just too much. There are too many problems. And they're all important. After the initial podcasts are released, I'll release a new episode every Tuesday, which will loosely follow the Utopia vs. Dystopia series. The Utopia vs. Dystopia series takes clips on a subject and mashes them together to make it really easy for you to understand what's going on. So if you watch the first episode, it's about 15 minutes, and you'll get an understanding of how financially imbalanced we are and why. The full clips are included as well, and I'll release book recommendations, movies, documentaries. So basically, however you want to learn about an issue, I want to make it easy for you to do it. I don't want to recreate the wheel here. There are already people sounding the alarm on all sorts of issues. It's not just me. Some days it may feel like just me, but it's not. So we can discuss on the podcast, and we will, how we got here and where our current direction is leading us, which is not good, and how we need to change directions. And I'll share with you my thoughts and ideas on what that direction should be and how we can get there. And ultimately, when it comes down to it, how all we really need are enough people to come together and form a community of people who care. And we can get there. By taking this approach, it takes the pressure off of me. I don't need to convince a bunch of people to download an app. I want that to happen. And I know eventually it will, whether it's mine or another community that uses technology, whether it's an app or otherwise, to connect and empower the people. I know this because I'm going to be here and keep trying until something changes. But that's the home run. And for our country, it's a home run or we don't even leave the dugout. And it's so frustrating because our country is so young. We should be shaping it. We shouldn't let these white male property owners set the rules. These are the guys that set the rules in the Constitution that we all live by. That drives me crazy in and of itself. And I'm not an anarchist, and I'm not saying we need to overthrow our government, but we can't depend on these guys. Especially right now. The stakes are too high. And my kids are growing up too fast. We need to do something. Since this podcast is new, we have no sponsors. So I will shamelessly plug Kako. And if you get sick of hearing this, then reach out to become a sponsor. And if you think I'm crazy and must be smoking the good shit, check out NJ Canamama.
Kako, the social app. K-A-K-O. Kako, the social app. K-A-K-O. Kako, the social app. Kako rules. Kako, the social app. Billionaire greed? Kako, the social app. Destroying America. Kako, the social app. T-minus 7 years and counting. Kako, the social app.
And with that, let's get back to the show. My goal for this podcast is to get this vision out of my head and to have other people understand the pillars. Because once other people understand it, it's a strategy. It's not something that only I can do. It's just that nobody else is doing it. And it's driving me crazy. Look, I'm not the type of person to sit back and complain about something and do nothing. Inaction guarantees a terrible outcome. We literally have a clock ticking down. 7.5 years to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. My kids won't even be 18. Trust me when I say that the consequences of turning your back are too great. If no one's going to do something about it, I am. I just can't sit on the sidelines and watch this all unfold. So I have a strategy, and I may not be the best at explaining it. I may not be funny or interesting or anything like that. There's probably a ton of people who would be a better podcast host than I am. But they're not here. They're not standing up. So for right now, you're stuck with me. And believe me, this is not what I envisioned. I've pivoted so many times throughout this that I feel like I'm dancing over here. But I'll keep pivoting. I'll keep changing courses. I'll keep trying new things. And I'll keep fighting until something changes. Because this is unacceptable to me. And I've got a way, I've got a strategy, and we're going to go over that. And so that is going to be one of the intro episodes. The other intro episode is going to be my personal journey throughout this and why it's so important for me. And there are some common themes throughout this podcast. The future of work and what we consider being a contributing member of society. Look, I think for our planet's sake, we need to slow down. And so we'll talk about that too. Addiction is a theme that's going to come up too often. Deaths of despair, because I've been to too many funerals. So those themes are going to come up throughout the podcast. But there's four main pillars that really impact just about everything that we talk about. One is the corruption and how us bending over backwards and letting billionaires and special interests write the rules that we all have to live by, how that's impacted all different aspects of life, and how that has created a world that is so shitty that we are dying from despair. This corruption, it's the root cause of so much. Another theme is going to be technology and how we need to use it purposefully, and how up until now it's been used to line the pockets of those who are least in need. The third is community. And I know we've heard it all before. We need to come together. And it's because we do. And we'll talk about the hate and the divide and the need for coming together on the things that we can agree on. And we need to let some of the things that we disagree on, we need to let that go, or we need to change that so that's not our main focus. And the fourth is spirituality. And I know you're probably like, all right, here goes the hippie shit. But there is so much negative going on right now. And if you don't intentionally try to offset that, it's going to weigh you down. Trust me, I know. So whatever that may be, whether that is becoming more active in your church or through self meditation, yoga, whatever it may be, you need to find a healthy outlet for redirecting the negative emotions that will naturally come around if you open your eyes. And right now we kind of have a self-defense mechanism going on where we're just somewhat desensitized because there's so much shit that's going on. And that's a really big problem. So I don't want to just ask you to pay attention to negative things just to pay attention to them. I'm asking you to pay attention because I know that there is something that we can do about it. And throughout this podcast, I'm going to explain that. And whether we go that route or some other route, we need to stop depending on politicians to get us out of this, because they're not going to do it. And there are way too many important issues that we need to start tackling now. We don't have the time to wait. We need to use resources efficiently. We need to connect the right people on the right problems. And we need to get some sort of urgency behind it. So that's what this podcast is going to be about. It's going to be about the corruption and why right now, if we keep trying the way that we have been trying in the past to bring about change, how it's not going to work. And then what's on the horizon, and how, if we apply that to the same logic as the last 4 decades, how horrible that will be for society. And then how, if we use technology differently, because technology is a critical component to the mess that we're in now, and I'll talk about that. But if we use technology differently, and if we used it purposefully, and if we used it with intention, how much better things could be. If there's even a sliver of a chance you think that I'm right, then you should download the app. And not just download the app, but incorporate it into your daily. And you can do that through using it for encrypted text messages. You can do that through groups and similar to like a Facebook group. You can do that through sharing the things that you're doing to better yourself and the things that you're doing to better the world around you. Social media doesn't need to be toxic. It's just become toxic. But technology is just a tool, and it's how we use it. And we don't need to use it the way that Mark Zuckerberg has set it up. We're not bound by that. And we're not bound by what I have set up. I have set up what I think makes sense, but just give me feedback. There are a ton of ways that you can help besides the obvious like, rate, share, download. But the most important is understanding this problem and sharing this problem and talking about this problem. And I know how hard that can be. On both sides of my family, I am like banned from talking about anything that I'm passionate about. And it's discouraging. But I don't bring it up all the time because I don't want to be a source of negativity. And right now, until we get a bunch of people together, I only have negative things and predictions to make. Look, no one is going to invite me to parties if I am the one screaming the sky is falling every time I see you. I understand that. And look, we're never going to see the sky falling. And that's a problem because it's like, it seems like people need to see the comet coming down, right? Why is that? It's because we don't have any trust. And that is such a serious problem. And we'll talk about that throughout this series. Ultimately, I don't think that we should be letting Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos make the rules. There are so many questions and ethical concerns about the evolution of technology, and we're leaving that all in their hands. It doesn't make sense. We've done it their way, right? And we've ended up with super billionaires. We've ended up with so much despair. Their incentives are not aligned. They will approach every problem from the perspective of what is best for their shareholders. And surprise, surprise, that's what's best for them. There's no reason why we can't create a community that does the same thing, but does it in the best interest of our community and uses that strength and that power to benefit our community and society and the planet. Because there are too many problems. We can't leave it up to these guys. We can't leave it up to our politicians. And we have to do something. And so the first step is downloading the app and incorporating it into your daily routine. And you can do that in multiple ways. As soon as you download the app, there'll be a tutorial that comes up and reach out with any questions. It's a social network. It takes a little getting used to. Just like when I tried to jump back on Facebook and I was like, what the hell is going on? Like there was just so much new stuff. But it basically signals your intent to want to entertain a better option or a different option. But considering that the current option is so terrible, I feel like whatever we create will be better. And so when 1% of the population is actively using the app, I'm going to start recruiting a panel. And they're going to be a diverse panel. There can be people who have been fighting for working class and been fighting for equality and been fighting for the advancement of all. And they're going to come up with the rules. And the reason why we need 1% of the population to be actively doing their part, right? We need to get the best and the brightest people on this. Because if we get the best and the brightest people, we will be successful. That's why I'm so confident in this solution, is because it has nothing to do with me. As soon as I can get this vision out, somebody else can take it from there. And until that panel is formed, everything that is generated through Kako is going to go back into Kako. So hopefully at some point I don't have to, consult on the side to cover it. But yeah, that's going back to Kako. And throughout this podcast, I'm just going to be sharing all of these pieces that have made me so concerned and led me to this point. And it takes a lot of digestion, and there's a lot of things that are just connected that you don't see until you get this bigger picture. And once you see the big picture, you're going to see how bad it is. And when you understand how we got here, you're going to be pissed. But you're going to want to fight for something better. Because not only will you open your eyes and see what's on the horizon, but you'll see how all we need to do is come together, and then we can tweak their own playbook and we can use it for our own. And if I do a good job, you'll be able to see how transformative this can be. Hopefully, you'll also see how we can advance so many more issues if we just take a different approach. And by taking a different approach, I think we are increasing our chance of getting our government to work for us again. So my goal in this is to get as many people as I can to see this big picture. I'm good at a lot of things, but community organizing is not one of them. I tried that and I failed miserably. Actually, me and organization just don't belong in the same sentence. But at this point, community organizers are needed. And it's my hope that when the panel is selected, that they recognize those who helped get this off the ground. They'll determine any compensation I get or anybody else who helped play a significant role in bringing this to fruition. I don't think you should have to sacrifice to do the right thing. While it might not feel like it, there is enough to go around. For me, it's not about the money. If Kako's successful, I'll be more than comfortable with the income that's generated through this podcast and through the website. What is important, though, is that we use the strength of capitalism. And to do that, you shouldn't have to be a sacrificial lamb. That's why we're losing the best and the brightest. I'm not talking about the Jeff Bezos of the world. I'm talking about the really smart programmers that are paid 6-7 figures. I'm okay with that. They've busted their ass and they're blessed with amazing talents, and they will be well paid for it, whether they use their skills for good or if they use their skills for evil. And right now, their skills are being used to further the divide. I don't have a problem with millionaires, and it drives me crazy when people are shamed for living comfortably. I once saw an article shaming an activist because they lived in an $850,000 house in North Jersey. It's a 5-bedroom house. He's married with 5 kids. He has foster kids, nieces, and nephews, his wife living with him, and people are giving him a hard time because he has an $850,000 house. We still want to incentivize the best and the brightest. So there has to be a balance, right? But it can't be that there are billionaires created. There has to be checks and there has to be balances to make sure that the things aren't going crazy. In absence of a dependable government, we've got to form something. So help me be part of that 1%. Download the Kako app, It's free. Like I said, I'm not perfect. This podcast isn't perfect. The app's not perfect. Report any bugs. There's a spot right on the homepage to do that and connect with me.
Kako, the social app. K-A-K-O. Kako, the social app. K-A-K-O. Kako, the social app. Kako rules. Kako, the social app. Billionaire greed? Tuh. Kako, the social app. Destroying America. Kako, the social app. T-minus 7 years